Looking Forward Our Way podcast addresses today's critical issues affecting adults in Ohio. We focus on issues that affect our money and our neighborhoods. Our expert guests are here to provide the information and resources needed to address those challenges. We are looking forward our way. Hi, this is Brett. For over 20 years, her successful political career held a vision to improve city government by putting its citizens first. This central Ohio suburb had many challenges, but our guest, former Whitehall Mayor Kim Maggard, met those challenges head-on through creative partnerships, attracting new business, and supporting residents and business owners. Let's welcome Mayor Kim Maggard to discuss her political career path and the new challenges she sees as she moves into her own Encore career. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me here today.
This is a great little reunion.
Yeah.
Brett and I loved Whitehall. Even when we would say that and people would give us a look like, what? We loved Whitehall, and most of it because you and your team were so welcoming to employment for seniors, and we had a great run there when we were working together. So thanks for coming to see us today. This is wonderful.
Well, you're welcome, and I'm happy to be here. And, Whitehall is a very welcoming city, and I don't feel like it gives the kudos that it deserves.
Oh.
So we'll probably talk more about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are incredible, interesting gems in Whitehall, and it's almost like it's a light under a bushel, and people don't see those wonderful lights. So yeah, this is going to be fun. Mm-hmm. Brett used the term that you were going into kind of a next path on your career. We call it an encore career. That's a label that not too many people know or understand. So for some, their chosen career has taken a turn and they are venturing toward a new challenge. For others, it could be retirement, and others, it may be a new employment opportunity defined differently than their past work, the format or structure, or possibly something completely new, different career field. So our Encore propels us into the unknown. As I mentioned to you when you came into the studio, this is my encore. And as long as I'm having fun, I'll keep showing up. And when I'm not, Brett will notice I'm not here, I guess. So,
but give me a little more heads up than that, please.
Okay. Maybe a day or two.
Yeah, that's fine. 48 hours is fine.
Exactly. He may give you a call to be like a guest host with him sometime.
Well, who knows? I might like it.
Yeah, exactly. So, audience, today we're going to explore this whole notion of Encore career with you. But before we do all of that, let's first take a look at Mayor Maggard's early educational training and career, kind of before you got on that political journey.
Well, my educational career, I went to Eastern Kentucky University. I got a Bachelor of Science in law enforcement, and my minor was sociology. And then after that, now this was in 79, so there weren't any jobs available in 79. It was that big recession that was going on. My husband and I had just got married, so I decided I would go and turn my minor, sociology, into a teaching certificate. So I did that. And then I did substitute teaching in public schools for about a year. And during that time, I had my first child as well. So that was that. We had the opportunity to move to Columbus. My husband got a job with DSCC as a computer programmer. And we moved for more employment, opportunities. So we're here, and I'm at home with two kids then, and I'm thinking, what do I really, really like to do? And I thought, I love libraries. So I went back to school. As you can tell, I love school and I love education. Exactly. So I went back to school and went through the Masters of Library Science. And I started my career then at It was called Columbus Public Library and Franklin County Public Library. And I worked in administration for approximately 3 years, and then became pregnant with my third child. So took a break, had another child. And then after that, I stayed home for a while, and then I went back to the library and worked, as a librarian assistant, and then eventually became the manager of circulation at the Whetstone branch. Now, all these job titles have since changed and been updated because that was a long time ago. And the libraries have just evolved so much since that time. But I really, really enjoyed what I did. And then an opportunity came about for a kind of a political career. I was already at that time when I was working at the library, I had already been elected to the Board of Education. And we can get into that a little bit later about how, that propelled me. And that was really my first step into the political arena. And got my juices flowing there.
It seems like there's a couple of skill sets that the library may have missed. So you're a cop. Overdue books.
They could have made a fortune.
Made a fortune, yeah.
But as also a sociology degreed person, it is absolutely a lesson in you can take a social science major and do whatever you want with it.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
It is just, there's so much opportunity there. Yeah. And you just have to be open to those opportunities and be aware when they come your way.
Right. Parents, when I was working at Ohio State and doing career counseling, parents would go, I don't want my kid to have a sociology degree. They'll never find a job. And I'm like, are you kidding? They, other than the fact they can't be an accountant or an engineer or an architect, they can do anything they want. And the skill set is so much stronger in social sciences than it is in a lot of other areas.
What that degree does, it teaches you to be adaptable and to think outside the box.
Right.
And it also has you making sure that you understand the different arenas where people are coming from and not to judge those arenas at first glance.
Exactly. An absolute career path to politics without being a political science major.
Yeah, that's true.
It really is.
Yeah.
So wonderful.
Yeah,
That's great.
Well, your background's in. We didn't. I don't even know what the word I'm trying to. I had it and I lost it, but it's that we never. Carol may have known you a little bit more than I did potentially because she was in Whitehall all the time, every day, where I was just serving on the board and such. But just your background before you got into the political arena is really interesting. I love this. But so let's get you pulled into that mayor position. What pulled you into that?
Well, we'll start back where I got on the Board of Education. Okay. I was very involved in the schools then. I was PTA president, all this other stuff. And so there was a levy that had come up. And the levy had been defeated 2 times. And then the third time, I decided I would get involved. And I'll tell you, that was the stepping stone. We went out and worked really hard, did door to door. And it was very contentious, but I thrived. And we had a group of people that were so dedicated. And we said, we're going to win it this time. And the euphoria of winning that levy and knowing that we were going to have enough money for years and years and years to come for our kids in the school district to get the things that they so truly needed was exhilarating. And so I said, wow, if there's a Board of Education seat coming up, I hope that I would be considered. We had somebody step off the Board of Education approximately a year and a half later. I applied for that. And of course, the first question they ask is, this term is up in a year. Would you say that you would run again? And I said, yes. So that's what happened. And I was on the Board of Education for 6.5 years while I was also working, at the library. And I was approached to run for city auditor for the city of Whitehall. And so I thought about it. And also at that time, there was a gentleman, the current auditor then, who said, I want to move to Florida. I want to retire, and his term was not up. So I was appointed to that term. I'd already taken out nominating petitions to run. So I was selected to be the auditor after the gentleman moved to Florida. And it really gave me a leg in that I could see the books. I could see exactly what was going on. And guess what? I was good at it.
Even better.
It was just so easy for me to understand that. And I think that came from my statistical background, just from, knowing how libraries work and knowing where to go get information and things like that. And it worked well for me. And I really, really loved being the city auditor, and I did win that election. I ran against an incumbent city council member who had been on city council for a long time. It was a close race, but I won. So, and the thing about politics, it's important to have mentors, people who are already in politics who believe in you and believe that you could do the job, and I had that. And at that time, it was Mayor John Wolf, and there was many people on city council who also believed in my efforts. So that helped as well. It's important to have around you people who will support you and understand what your vision is. And my vision at that time, when I first got into city politics, was let's have transparent books available. Let's make sure that we have a good monthly report to council every month, letting them know if things are starting to go down, what's going up, and then let that be broadcast to the citizens. So basically that's what that was, and I kind of tightened up some things in the office a little bit more. So that's what I did. So that's kind of was my stepping stone into city politics. It started at the school board level and basically more at the volunteer level. That got me into that.
When people talk about successful political paths, oftentimes they will say, well, it's really important for individuals to start sort of at the bottom. And I don't mean bottom in that it's lesser, but as opposed to these guys who walk in off the street, never having done anything in government and think they can run everything. You learn so much in those smaller positions as you work your way towards another goal. And it doesn't have to be up, it could be across, however. But, when I was working for the state, oftentimes you would hear, you got to get the dog catchers elected first. And that's really how it gets started, you move people up the line. It is being in politics is amazing, and I wish everybody could participate.
I wish they could too, because it's not as easy as it looks.
Oh, no, not by any stretch of the imagination. So political careers are often measured by tangibles like budgets being met and not going into debt, buildings being built, but in reality, a political career is really most successful when an individual, to me, is a true leader. How do you define leadership, and what do true leaders really provide their constituents?
I think true leadership means having a vision and being able to communicate that vision of what can be better for your community or for the people you serve. They have to know that they can believe in you. and in your government. They have to realize that you're there to really serve them. And when they become trusting of you, you have to remember that they're always your boss. And yes, there will be some who will always be naysayers. There always will be. But the point is, still you have to listen to those naysayers because they may have something that you're missing. So don't try to turn them off. Try to focus on some of the things that they're saying, and if it rings, that there's a ring to you, and you say, yeah, maybe we can work on that. So it's having a vision of what can be better, and then communicating that vision in an effective way, whether it's through, annual guides, or it's going to places where they go, or making sure that you have the kind of festivals that they would enjoy, and things that will just make their lives better. Will new roads make their lives better? I say hell yes, definitely. Will housing upgrade programs help your citizens? And we did a number of those where we would say, let's do a fix up. If you pay $5,000, we'll match that $5,000. You can get a new roof. Here's the things that all you can do with that money.
Let me just say, one of the volunteers at Employment for Seniors, mm-hmm. that's how we became so aware of what was going on in Whitehall, mm-hmm. because she was able to take advantage of all mm-hmm. of those things. Mm-hmm. And year after year got, new windows and new electric boxes and all those kinds. Mm-hmm. And in a community of where people were just barely able to hold on to their homes, that was needed.
Yes. And we wanted them to hold on to their homes because we know that was right when the wave started happening, where you had these outside investors that would come in and buy up these homes. We wanted our residents to be homeowners because we know that the real value is in their home. You can your income, you can have something that's yours, and you can get value from that later. And also, it helps to raise your children that way, to say, this is what can happen to you, and we can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. So we wanted to make sure that people had safe homes to live in, and they can be proud of those homes. And not only for them, but as Whitehall, for a community, that was very important to us. Mm-hmm. And you have to listen to your citizens, and you have to listen to what they need and they want. You can't fix everything, but there are some things that you can do.
Yeah. So, holding an office has a ton of challenges, from financial need, housing, transportation, mm-hmm. just a little bit what we talked there. So what challenges did you face that were in the most difficult when you're holding office, and what were the most energizing? Maybe they're one and the same.
Well, the most difficult was COVID. Now, this was at the beginning of my third term. That was absolutely the most difficult because all of a sudden things shut down. They sent DSCC employees home to work, which we were very much afraid of because in Ohio, municipalities get their income tax from where people work, not where they live, but where they work. So for a while, it was okay that they still paid their taxes to Whitehall. But then during that second year where they were still letting people work from home, that money went away. And so that was a big, big loss of income for Whitehall. So that was definitely challenging. Some other things that were challenging was the opioid crisis. It took a lot of our young people and our young adults. And I I will say that our police chief was not hesitant in saying, we're going to get some Narcan out there. So we had community meetings, and we worked with the health department. We also worked with some churches in handing out Narcan. And we made sure that every household had 2 at a time if they wanted it, so that they could help anybody that was having an overdose. That was very, very challenging during that time. Also, during the first year of COVID, when Columbus had their unrest downtown, we were certainly concerned regarding, is this going to go out into the suburbs as well, and how are we going to deal with that? So there was a man in our community. His name was Clint Elmore. He's a black man, and he had lots of experience dealing with black constituents, and he knew exactly what we needed. He went over to the police department, offered his services, and was able to give some police officers training. And then there was a march that we knew was going to happen all the way from past Reynoldsburg. They were going to come down Main Street. So when they got into Whitehall, our police officers actually escorted them into the next city to let them know that they were safe. We protected their right to use their voice and to make sure that they were free to state their opinion. And we just escorted there. There were no incidents. So those are some of the things that we try to do. We tried to uphold freedoms during that time and tried to make it as safe as possible. Some people still didn't like that. It's just the way it was. But we felt like we did a good job. And that was really a trying time, just trying to communicate with employees who weren't coming into work. We still had some employees that were in City Hall, not everybody. We had to lay some off during that time, and that was difficult. Because some of those employees were friends. Mm-hmm. I'd become friends with them as you have a small workplace that you work with, and it was hard. So, and very trying for those employees. So that was difficult.
It's interesting that the challenges that you name were outside coming in,
mm-hmm.
not internal.
True.
Of course there were.
Yeah.
Of course. But the ones that you note were the ones you had to kind of unexpected, came from the outside. They had to protect Whitehall.
And that's really been the issue that Whitehall has had. As a community, it has been evaluated based on what's going on around it, not what's going on in the city itself.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The city of Whitehall is just we're small. We're 5 square miles, but 2 square miles of that is DSCC. So basically, what we cover is 3 square miles, and we have to worry about everything that's around us, and that gets difficult at times. So just trying to be aware of that, and always trying to make sure that our fire and police are patrolling and trying to keep our ears open hasn't always been easy. But it can be done. It can absolutely be done. And it's important that we train our residents as well to be aware and not to be afraid to contact the city regarding any of their concerns. Mm-hmm. They felt welcome coming to the city with their concerns and how we could help.
We really do have to do a shout out to Whitehall's fire and police units. Employment for Seniors used to run a 5K through the community, and every year they'd look at me like I was crazy. But they would, back off and help us out and make sure that our runners were safe going through the neighborhood, and that the residents who were a little upset because we had blocked their street for a few minutes. But so a shout out to them. The other thing too, with the fire and police, was my first experience really in working with Whitehall as an entity was the night out programs. When our buddy Zach Woodruff strong-armed me into being in Whitehall till midnight to do the night out, and we had a great time. I'd bring staff and volunteers with me, and we had a good time. So hi to Zach, who's doing a great job at Columbus State right now.
He sure is.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He is also a model for political pathways, and so good for him. But I wanted to step back with something that you started with on the payroll tax issue. I don't think folks realize when economic development programs are created to bring new companies in, a whole lot of it is based on the payroll coming into the city or the county or the township or whatever. And that is an incredible amount of money. People don't realize how that influx of income tax payroll makes such a difference.
That is absolutely correct. And that's why cities are always focused on development, because that's really what brings in the money. The real estate values will go up on those parcels. You'll have more people working in your cities, paying income tax to your cities. And I know residents, longtime residents especially, don't really understand the value of that development. They just say, oh, there's going to be more cars and there's going to be more traffic and they're going to tear up our streets more. And but yet,
or bring in the riffraff.
Yes, I have heard that as well. But the real thing is that is taking a burden off of them in order to, pay for police and fire, which are an exorbitant amount from the budget. That helps pay for those services that they receive.
Right.
And
also brings job opportunities for the residents.
Exactly.
So so this is where our the end of this discussion is going to go back to, eventually we're going to talk about what do people need to know about politics. So that was probably one of our first lessons. You've already mentioned some situations that were profound for you. Can you think of some others that you wanted to talk to us about, and tell us how that changed you and what you learned about yourself from these instances?
That's kind of a hard question, but what I've learned about myself is that home and having a hometown is really important to people. And even if they've only lived in that town for a year or two, they consider that their hometown. And having a safe place that people feel good about can make that attitude so much better and make a home life so much better. So I think people kind of forget about those aspects of living somewhere and feeling comfortable and feeling safe. And feeling safe is very important. Also, Whitehall is very, very diverse, very diverse. When I first moved there in 81, there was probably the biggest diversity were Asian and Russian. And now it's approximately, I would say, 45% Caucasian, with the other majority being Black and Hispanic. So it has changed quite a bit in the last 45 years or so. And there's still a lot of people living there who've lived there longer than me. And they say, well, it's changed. Everything changes. You've got to get used to that. Everything changes. Yesterday is not the same as today. And yeah, it upsets us. And I think it's the more that we grow older, the more the change will upset us. So that's difficult with people.
Well, for our audience, we keep talking about DC. I say DCSC. It's
DSCC.
DSCC. So it's the Defense Construction Supply Center. That's the old name. Which is a federal compound, basically, in Whitehall. And Whitehall, as a bedroom suburban community, really got going because of all the people working at this. My parents used to call it the depot, the supply depot.
Exactly.
Which is just south of the Columbus airport. So that compound has had a significant impact on Whitehall from the very beginning. I think the difference now is that the composition of people working there is different. And because of the ability of the easiness of transportation, which wasn't around in the 50s, 60s, and 70s in Columbus, plus that notion of working remotely, that has impacted Whitehall in that people who work at the compound don't necessarily live close by. It used to be where you literally could walk to work.
Exactly. People don't understand that those taxes are there to support Whitehall. And when they don't work there, on the days that they don't work there, that income tax is paid to either Columbus or whatever city, or they could live in a township that doesn't even have income tax.
But even into another county.
Yes.
I mean, Licking County is not that far.
Exactly. So, there's that. Also, it's changed quite a bit in that some of the functions at DSCC have changed somewhat. Their biggest functions are still, of course, hierarchy, federal employees, and also the payroll. Payroll is the big issue there. They pay all federal employees there. So they have to make sure that they have competent, upgraded systems to pay those employees. And they also have to have recreation facilities for those employees, either before or after work. So there's always something, it seems like, going on there. And I'm happy to say that it looks like a lot of that workforce has returned. And it started returning, I think, all of them, for the most part, after I left office. So COVID kind of, stretched out. And then in 2024, they started making them all come back to work, which was very good for Whitehall. Because lots of times, even though DSCC has their own medical services and ambulances and things like that, we would still be able to help. And also, they help us because they have a ladder fire truck, which we don't have.
Interesting.
Yeah, because they're so expensive. So when we needed a ladder truck, we could call them and they would come and help. And now that we do have one 5-story apartment building that was just built in Whitehall, it's great because we know we can depend upon that, and that's very important.
So could you provide our listeners, Ohioans, a few tips on what you would tell them that they should know or understand about the political process, especially from your view inside out? Because most of us, 95% of us, probably even a higher percentage, are outside looking in. Totally don't get what's behind the curtain.
And there's a lot behind those curtains.
Right.
There is. It's not easy, number one, and it's not easy because plans have to be made years in advance. And you may hear of a development happening, or that we've been approved for new roads or new infrastructure. Know that that money for roads and infrastructure usually comes from the state. The state makes up their budget approximately 2 or 3 years ahead, and then sometimes those funds are frozen until maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years. So things do not work fast when it comes to infrastructure of any kind. And then it seems like it's all happening at once, as it is every day now. It just seems like there's something new happening at one time. And know that a lot of this money also comes from the federal government. It comes from a different administration or whatever that has been nicely held on to. And then you can match it up with state funds, and then local governments can provide a little bit. So it's like a jigsaw puzzle, and it just doesn't happen at one time. It'd be great, although all this construction right now, but you got to realize all the planning that went into the, years to make that happen.
And when you were saying, like with the federal government, oftentimes the feds will say, well, we'll give you this million, but you have to come up with 200,000. And then the state says to Whitehall, well, but you have to come up with 50,000.
Exactly.
And that takes a while to collect all those dollars.
It does. And we have to make sure that we've got the money to set aside for those projects. That we put them in different funds, we set them aside, and then they sit there. And then sometimes when citizens see the balance and they say, but you've got all this money, a lot of it's set aside for projects, for matching funds, and that cannot be taken out or we lose the project.
Exactly. So Whitehall may want to take away 50,000, but they're going to lose the $1 million too from the feds and the state.
Exactly. So that's one of the things is it takes time. And you got to realize that even the mayor has to work with city council and other elected officials and county officials in order to get things done. Being the mayor doesn't mean that you can snap your fingers and something's going to happen. Now, there've been times when somebody's come to me and say, hey, we got this house and they really need a new window, but they don't have enough money. Can the city give a new window? And yes, we can do that to help that citizen. Or we may have realized we messed up on a plumbing and we're flooding their yard. Yeah, that's up to us. So there's certain things that we can and can't do. And even city budgets are a year's worth of budgets, and you may not have the money to fix something one year, so you got to wait and make sure it's budgeted in the next year. And it's kind of like with your own personal wallet, only it's bigger, and you got to say, yeah, I got a leaky basement, but I just can't fix it this year. Let's start putting money aside, and maybe in 3 to 4 years we can fix it. Same things happen with the city, just on a grander scale, because of all the things that continually need to be fixed between parks and your roads and your police department, fire department, collecting taxes. You got to pay people to collect those taxes. All those things are interwoven.
Mm-hmm. There aren't that many political offices. So even in a community as small as Whitehall, there are only so many, there's one mayor, only so many city council folks, one auditor, one treasurer. Mm-hmm. Not everybody can be in a political position. But I would think that there were things that citizens could do that not only would help their community and support local government, but also it would be educating them on how government works, like you did as a volunteer with the Board of Education. Mm-hmm. Do you have some tips for people, regardless of whether it's a small community like Whitehall or a large community like Columbus?
Well, I would certainly say to watch the city council meetings on the city's website. I believe they are on there the day after the meeting takes place. Keep yourself updated. Unfortunately, we no longer have a community newspaper. I don't think any suburbs have a community newspaper anymore, but that was definitely a source of information. And how can we get more information out? I know every so often I would do a blurb on Facebook about what's happening. What's happening with upgrade to City Hall. That had just started when I had left, and it was a mess. And so just getting your face out there and telling people what they can expect in certain areas, I think that's really important. We have the ability to use our media. It needs to be done in a very get on the offense first instead of being behind the ball. Just get out there and just try to tell as much as possible. And still, people are busy. They don't have time sometimes to go on social media every day. You know what? They're busy, especially if they're working 2 to 3 jobs. They're just trying to get their food on the table. So sometimes, you just got to give people a break and try to, tell them again what's going on. Not everybody has the ability to sit down and try to have time to read or to go on social media to find out what's going on. And the thing about it is, how do you reach those people? I don't have an answer for that, because that is the most difficult.
It really is. I can remember when we first were working with Employment for Seniors and were working with the city, how many Whitehall residents said to me, our schools look beautiful because of that levy that had gone through. And it probably took years, but I think every school was updated from those levy dollars. And just being aware of what's on the ballot is huge. I guess if people don't do anything else, be aware of what's on the ballot, who's on the ballot, and who is really going to do a good job of taking care of your house and your community.
Yes. I will say that those 5 new schools at the same time, getting that levy passed was amazing. Now, this was the second one I had worked on, and Brent Howard was the council president at that time, and I was the auditor. We were the co-chairs, and we had a massive amount of people who volunteered for that levy, and just having, at least 100 people other than us out there saying the same message and getting the message across. To have people vote yes to pay more money for all the schools in the district was phenomenal. I think that was one of the best things that's ever happened to Whitehall. And I'm so proud of those schools and the way in which they're being used to the maximum potential. We did eventually save one school because the rest we tore down, and we saved one school to have a Head Start center. So we could actually have a Head Start in Whitehall, because so many children need that extra boost.
Right.
And I was very proud of the school board for doing that.
Right.
And I want to say thank you to them for that.
And you don't have to have kids to be supportive of your school system. But what you said was really important, that they voted yes, they knew what it was about, and they could hold you accountable. I voted yes. Now you are accountable to making sure it happens. That's the way government's supposed to work.
Yes, exactly. And I think they did a great job in doing that. And I'll never forget the opening days of each one of those schools. Yeah. It was awesome.
I got to visit several of them, and especially the high school. They looked beautiful.
Yes.
So, and they didn't have to be. My big complaint about schools are when high schools look like little mini college campuses. Yes. They don't have to look like that to be a good school.
Exactly.
Anyway, so we've had a great conversation here about your legacy. You've had several elected positions and the legacy that you have left and all that you were able to accomplish in your hometown, which is so important. Young people looking at going into politics today, I'm not sure I would if I was a young person. Is this a sacrifice that you want to make? How do you reflect on that, your legacy, and what advice would you give to young people on the importance of them going into politics?
Well, I would say if you're interested, please know that there will always be snags, but that's in any career field, okay? In any career field. Nothing is perfect, but remember, you are the person that can help Now, you'll never make it perfect because that's impossible, but you can do something to make it better. Just remember, it takes people. It doesn't take one person. It takes people. Even when you go back and you look at some of the great presidents that we had, FDR and Abraham Lincoln, they had people who helped them. So just remember, it's a partnership. It's a partnership, and that's what's important. You find ways to make things work. And there are going to be disappointments. There's been times when I was incredibly disappointed and would go home, and sometimes, yes, I would cry. But you know what? You get your butt out of bed and you go again, because that's what you have to do. You can't quit. Quitters don't get anything done. Mm-hmm. It's getting up every day and making sure that you know that you can give something, whether it's just an opinion, whether you see something that somebody else hasn't seen. Don't be afraid to bring that up, because that may be so important to the conversation. Have confidence in yourself. You're there for a reason. If you're interested, something's pulling you in that way for a reason. Don't shut it down.
And don't think you have to be jumping in feet first with no safety net and going to the nth degree. Think about how critical all of the staff are in a governmental entity to staff to an elected official. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of roles to play.
Yes.
I can't imagine ever being the person who would go for an elected office, but I loved working for an elected official.
Yes.
There's a role for everybody.
Mm-hmm. There absolutely is. And you just got to realize, I know when I first became city auditor, I had everybody was so helpful to me, so helpful. And that's what makes things work, is when you work as a team. Teamwork, it matters. I know that's a phrase that may be out of style, but it shouldn't be, because teamwork makes things happen. Look at OSU. Mm-hmm. I mean, had to bring that up.
Well, we've spent a lot of time looking in the rearview mirror. Mm-hmm. So let's start looking ahead. You're beginning your own Encore career transition. So, again, small, as a quick look back into your time in politics, are there particular interests that you would like to carry into your next opportunity? And we bring this up because every once in a while we do get to have the ability to talk about Encore careers, and your past can't just be put on a shelf and not affect what you do in the future, because there are things that you loved and you want to continue to love to do, but in a different format, I guess you could say.
Right.
Without having to get up at 8 a.m.
Yes.
or be someplace at 8 a.m.
Absolutely.
There you go.
I'll tell you, I was never so frantic. In the mornings, I was always frantic. What I'm, of course, I'm, thinking of maybe an Encore career, but I'm also thinking of volunteerism, and how can I use my experience in the volunteer field as well. So, and knowing that my husband and we like to get away sometimes for weeks and have that time alone. And now that we can do that, I don't want to, push it aside. And besides, he would kill me. But
after all the years of them never seeing you,
exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's so many interesting places that you have given me, Carol, to look into possible volunteer opportunities. So I'm looking into those right now. I have to tell you, I'm really drawn to food insecurity and women's educational paths and careers that who may not, have those opportunities that can somehow be helped. So, there's different things I'm looking at. And the point is how do you choose? How do you choose? Because there is a lot of need out there. And I just want to make sure that I can use my past experience, my knowledge of the way organizations run, and how can I use those to the best of my ability in order to lift up, certain aspects of the community. And how can I do that? And so I'm exploring those ways right now.
Well, when you and I were talking about you coming onto the podcast, I think I mentioned one of the things that individuals who are looking to go into their next path, into an Encore career, really do need to do is to sit back and think about all they did. All of those things that we've brought out that you had experience with today, oftentimes an older adult walks away from a job and they go, "Oh, I didn't really do anything. I don't really have any skills, and nobody's going to want me. I'm old," and blah blah. All that kind of stuff. So this whole exercise, this podcast was like an exercise of how do you bring out all this value that you bring to another employer or to another organization, whatever that may lead, wherever that may lead you. One of the things that we also talked about is you were very successful in your political positions. In looking forward, how do you see yourself being successful? What situation may be there for you, or what outcome do you possibly see that you can help provide?
Coming from my early background growing up, I came from a poor family. We traveled around a lot. My dad was in the military. He was enlisted, and back in the 60s, enlisted people did not get paid much at all. A family of 4 children in that family. And knowing what my mom and dad did to provide for us, it wasn't always easy. So taking those experiences and bringing them into politics, I think, really helped me with the Whitehall community, knowing what those needs were. But also, going forward, one thing that I do well, I think, is listen. People may not think that I'm engaged because I have to listen and then go and internalize it and think on it and ruminate and then come back. And that's what I do in order to try to come up with solutions or to get conversations going. So I think those things, knowing what my leadership style is definitely collaborative. I like to give credit to people who do the job and uplift them. But I think board positions, things like that on volunteer, boards, may be something I would be interested in. But the thing about it is that leadership is defined different from each person. And my leadership style is definitely collaborative. But when I had to, I could say no. Certain experiences I've had in the past, you just kind of know that let's try a different path. But for the most part, it's very collaborative, finding good people around you, knowing what an effective organization looks like is definitely important to me. And when an organization is effective, that means that you can help so many more people. And I'm looking, to be a part of that and doing some research, to make sure that if I go in that direction, that is going to be something that's going to be good for me as well, and not just for the organization.
Yeah. Now, we've got listeners that are probably in the role that you are right now, that they have retired or left their job or whatever the case might be, and then they're searching for that next thing. Do you have any advice for those adults who are moving into that Encore career, steps that they could make, or things they should hold off on, even if it's just the word patience. I think you're reflecting a lot of our listeners where they are right now in their path.
Well, yeah, definitely patience, and get to know Carol Ventresca.
She'll talk a leg off of you.
But definitely patience, and just be open. Be open to opportunities. Be open to ideas. Because I feel like something will come my way that I can't say no to. Mm-hmm. I don't know when, but I know that it will come because I have faith and I have hope, and I know the Columbus area, and I know that I have a fit somewhere. So I think just patience, don't give up. There's definitely maybe some certain things you can do in the meantime with some organizations, volunteerism. And hopefully, unfortunately, I know that some volunteerism try to confine. I was just talking to Carol about this, certain days a week and things like that you may not be able to do. But try to find one that fits you, because there's plenty out there. Yeah. There's as I'm finding, there's plenty out there.
What and just as an aside to our listeners who are used to me saying we will have some resources. When we post this podcast, we'll add some resources, and I'll add some resources on Encore careers. It really is an important time for an individual to be contemplative and think twice about what they want to do. I did not plan to be a co-host on a podcast as my Encore opportunity. I was, after leaving employment for seniors, I was going to go back to work, certainly not 24/7, which I was doing for 11 years, but Brett kept calling. And so finally I listened. So as you said, listen to what opportunities are out there and find out.
It wasn't the glamour. I just pestered her, apparently.
That's okay.
Okay, Brett. All right.
Exactly. I think I did say that a couple of times just to get him off the phone. But what I had done after I retired for the second time was to sit back and think about what did I enjoy doing and what did I not enjoy doing. Yeah. So, everybody said, well, you're really good at writing grants. And I go, yeah, well, I hated every minute of it and I don't plan to do it again. I don't care how much
hate
money.
Those. Yeah.
Doesn't matter. But when I sat down and really looked at what were the things that I enjoyed doing about my job, not only at Employment for Seniors, but when I was at Ohio State, and Brett was willing to let me finagle those things into the podcast, like our resources sheet, then I started really listening. So that's good. The other thing that I'm absolutely appalled, there was an article in the paper this week, I think it was in the New York Times, that there was a survey done, and employers overwhelmingly said that they felt that once a person was 58 years old, they were too old to hire. And so my next question to you, which is something you and I have talked about, is we're talking to employers out there on this podcast. What would you tell them about being open to an individual who was skilled and experienced regardless of age?
If you're looking for skills and experience, please do not just push older people away. They have knowledge out their kazoo. They can have patience. They can wait. They know when to open their mouths. They know when to keep them shut. And they know when to approach you to give you information that you need. That's the way I look at it. You have a gem right there. It doesn't need to be polished. It doesn't need to be cut. It's right there. Put it on your finger and go.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that again.
Yeah. I don't really have to add anything to that at all. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Time's flying as always with every episode we just get into it, and all of a sudden, boom, we're to the end. But we always like to ask our guests if you have any last words of wisdom. I'd you like to add any suggestions or advice, anything maybe we didn't get to cover yet in the episode.
I don't think so. I think you covered it all. Wow. But I guess the last thing I would say is thank you for inviting me, because I didn't think I'd have this much fun. Seriously, I've never done this before. And
well, thank you, because that is our goal, is to make it fun.
And
seriously, we do, because otherwise we wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't fun.
You made it so easy. And I will confess, and I know I'll probably confess to everybody listening to this podcast, I do have anxiety. And I know people go, you? Yes. And so I do have anxiety, and I was kept on looking over these questions and all this stuff. And I said, I don't know. Okay, I'm going to do it. And I always have to talk to myself. And I'm sure everybody out there talks to themselves and gives themselves a pep talk. But this was actually very much fun. I'm so glad I was asked to do this. And that's a lesson in that I should go and ask people for things as well, and don't hold back. Just put it out there. The worst people can say is no, and if they do, so what?
Exactly.
But I just want to say thank you, Carol, for asking me, and thank you, Brett, for making me feel so much at home. Sure. I do appreciate it.
Sure. Well, we certainly thank you for your time. Asking somebody to do these podcasts, it's a bit of time back and forth, and our discussions and putting questions together and all of that. So we appreciate you coming. And I think that our audience knows that the individuals we bring to the table, literally, are folks who are not just knowledgeable, but also willing to share their knowledge. So we appreciate that. So thanks to our expert guest, Kim Maggard, who is the former mayor of the city of Whitehall here in central Ohio, who joined us today. Listeners, thank you for joining us. You'll find the resources we discussed in the podcast show notes on our website at lookingforwardourway.com. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback on this or any of our podcast episodes.
The views and opinions expressed by the experts interviewed on this podcast are their own and don't necessarily reflect the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. The information provided in these interviews is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered as professional advice. Listeners are encouraged to consult with qualified professionals for specific advice or information related to their individual circumstances. The podcast host and producers don't endorse or guarantee the accuracy, completeness, or reliability of any information provided by the experts interviewed. Listener discretion is advised.